Welcome to Movie Talk. On today's show, we're talking about the brand new Irishman trailer. Then we found out that the Ghost Rider series is not going through on Hulu. And then on top of that, breaking news last night, Kevin Feige is developing a Star Wars movie. Welcome to this Heroes and Villains edition of Collider Movie Talk. We've got a great panel for you today that includes John Humphrey and Nikki Novak. But before we get to those discussions, we've got our call sheet. And the first item on the list today is, of course, The Irishman. So The Irishman is the most expensive movie Martin Scorsese has ever made. Why? Because of all the digital de-aging. The movie takes 76-year-old Robert De Niro and ages him down to his 20s. Netflix released 4 images to show that de-aging process. And then on top of that, we just got a brand new trailer for the movie, so we're going to discuss that on today's show. Next up here, filming on A Quiet Place Part 2. It's been underway since mid-July. What we know right now is that it brings back Emily Blunt, Noah Jupe, Millicent Simmons, and also adds Cillian Murphy and Jaimin Hansu. We don't know how these new characters here are going to factor in, but hopefully we're going to get some information on this one soon, because John Krasinski just took to Twitter and he shared that filming on the movie has officially wrapped. Next up, according to Deadline, fresh off his Emmy win, Jason Bateman is currently in early talks to both direct and star in the Fox Disney Clue remake, which already has Ryan Reynolds attached. Bateman and Reynolds would develop the script together. Now we're moving on over to that Hulu Ghost Rider story, because Variety is reporting that Hulu is no longer moving forward with the series that was set to star Gabriel Luna, which would, of course, have had him reprising his role from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but in a new timeline. The story notes that the series was ultimately nixed due to a creative impasse. More on this one later in today's show as well. And finally, that big breaking news from last night. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige, this is from their actual article, is going to be developing a Star Wars movie as Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy makes new plans for a wave of projects set in the universe. What is all this going to mean? We are going to discuss that on today's show. You can bet on that. Now we are moving over to a clip from one of Steve Tiff's interviews. This is his conversation with Bryce Dallas Howard. Check it out.
If you go back and look at some of the awesome directors that I've had the opportunity to work with, like that was all totally... I mean, not like I was like, I want to work with this person, this person, this person, but I had those dreams. Like, my agent is here. Didn't I have a list when I was 19 years old? I had a list when I was 19 years old where I was just like, oh my gosh, these are the people that I want to study under. One of the reasons why I was excited to work with Lars von Trier was not just Lars von Trier, although I was very excited to work with him. His DP is a guy named Anthony Dodd Mantle. And Anthony it was one of the first cinematographers who was really, really, really kind of pushing what was possible in terms of, cameras within the digital medium. And so, like, I was 22 years old when I did that movie, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, like, he's going to be, like, I get to talk to him. And he had been working with, like, Harmony Korine, and, like, he was one of the, like, the Dogma 95 guys. Sure. And I loved Dogma 95. I refer to it, like, all the time now. I'm like, oh, like, give me Dogma 95 right now. But anyway, so I remember, like, just cornering him on the set and just being like, what is happening? What are you going to do about the flicker effect? Like how is this medium going to evolve? And kind of the opposite version of that was on my first movie was Roger Deakins, who shot it. And Roger Deakins shot Beautiful Mind. And so I was just always on the set of Beautiful Mind.
Roger was here this morning.
What?
Yes. Exactly. I have something to tell you when the camera stops.
Great. I can't wait. But it was, so it's the cinematographers, the directors, other actors. I mean, I just wanted to just be in situations where creative people were being courageous and daring and imaginative and just pushing things forward, So sure. It's just been I don't like to sit in my trailer, and when I'm wrapped, I often do not leave. Once I had kids, like that obviously shifted to a certain degree.
The kids are important.
But, yeah, kids are a priority, you know. But before that point, like when I would be done shooting, like there was no way that I was leaving set. And my dad talked about that a lot too. He was like, go there on a day, don't just stay. Go there on a day when you are not on the call sheet. and you can truly be an observer, and you can truly watch, and no one feels like they have to take care of you. And then you're going to get a really good sense of everything. And so I always do that.
If you want to check out Steve's full chat with Bryce Dallas Howard, it's on the Collider Interview YouTube channel, and they had a lengthy chat. She's a delight. I highly recommend watching that one. But now, I highly recommend staying tuned for the rest of the show, because we have a great panel for you today. Nikki Novak is back on the desk, and John Humphrey is making his movie talk debut. I feel like when you emerged from the corner in the office, I'm like, it's been way too long since I've seen your face.
It's been since the last Schmodown thing that probably happened or something. I don't know. I haven't been here. This is the mellowest I've ever seen this studio.
Really? Oh, okay. That's what happens when you shoot a show bright and early in the morning and nobody wants to come into the office.
It's very quiet in here.
Though. I'm so at ease. I was nervous. I was doing a Rocky training montage. I was reading movie news out in the snow. And now I feel very relaxed.
Do you need the theme song?
It would help, honestly. And if we could get a log in here that I could drag around.
Well, I'm glad you prepped, because we have some serious stories on the lineup today. And we're kicking it off with a conversation about The Irishman. So what happened is, first, Netflix shared a series of 4 photos that basically show Robert De Niro at different stages of his life in the movie. So we got a up-close look at what the de-aging technology is going to look like. And there was some concern out there, specifically the photo that showed him at his youngest in the movie. But then they followed it up with a trailer. So what I want to know from you guys is, 1, did those photos sound the alarm for you? And then 2, did the trailer kind of ease the fears of the use of de-aging in the movie at all?
Go for it.
I mean, when I saw the pictures initially, I wasn't like, oh my God, this movie's going to be terrible now. But it was the kind of thing where I thought, when you see a PlayStation 4 graphic and you go, wow, it looks so much like Robert De Niro. It's that kind of almost there sort of uncanny valley. But when I saw the actual frames in motion in the trailer, I kind of came out to the place I expected, which is some of this looks really good. Some of it looks questionable, and they're going to have to do this throughout the movie, so I kind of just expected that in the first place. So, is it going to be distracting? Somewhat, I imagine, yeah, but for a movie like this, I guess I'm inclined to be a bit more lenient because it's a drama, and because I know that more than a lot of other movies that employ this technique, it's going to be all about how the story handles it, So, because I feel a lot of movies we see people de-age so that they can do action, or we can have some kind of science fiction plot happening. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not worried that the movie's going to be terrible, but I am curious about what the distraction level is going to be.
It was not that shocking to me until I saw a side-by-side of what Robert De Niro really looked like at that age. At first, I was like, okay, I could roll with this. But then all of a sudden, do we have a split screen here? I saw
that
this.
Army shot.
I forgot how, not that he's not handsome, but he really does look different. And the shot on the right, I told you this before we started rolling. He looks, and maybe you can't see it as much there, but when I saw the picture on my phone, he looks like Miles Teller, like an older Miles Teller to me. It looks more like him. But I'm more glass half full. I didn't really have an issue with it, although I'm one of those people that never has an issue with the CGI that everybody has an issue with in film. I just think it's more fascinating that they're telling this story over the course of so many years, and that it's going to be so. I just know this is going to be it's going to be so phenomenal. I think the question is, because people know the budget, and if they spent that much money, why does it look like that? But
the narrative on the budget is that it's all about this,
the CGI. But I also think that this is one of those movies that a lot of us want to see, of course. But I think it almost did it a favor that everybody's talking about on the internet, because it's sparked interest, and it's all press is all press good press at this point, because now everybody's doing these side by sides of themselves when they were younger. I think it's going to become a meme. It's going to become a thing, and then people are going to want to watch this 3.5-hour movie. Be more inclined to grab an audience that might not have watched it in the first place. Just
to get a little background to compare for you, what is the best use of de-aging you've seen, and what is the worst? How'd you feel about It Chapter 2?
Completely reconstructing the shape of Finn Wolfhard's head.
Yeah.
Again,
he's changed a lot over the years.
He's changed a lot.
He really has. Yeah, no, he really has. I didn't have an issue with It Chapter 2.
What about Rogue One?
What with Tarkin?
Yeah, Tarkin and Leia.
Tarkin, oddly enough, I sat there, I had to remind myself partway through the film that he was dead. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is odd. But they kept him in so much shadow that I actually didn't have as much problem with him as I had with Leia. Leia
I
at
agree.
the end of that movie creeped me out a bit. I think the best thus far is Sam Jackson in
Yes.
Yes.
Captain Marvel for me. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a cheat because he already doesn't look his age, you know? But that's probably one of my most seamless kind of like, I'm not even really thinking about it ones. Or I'm sitting there going, this easily could have been makeup for all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was phenomenal. And I think Gemini Man looks really good
Oh,
too.
I'm so excited.
Like
for that. I'm so curious to see how all that comes together.
'Cause from what we've seen so far, it looks pretty phenomenal. And it really does look like a younger Will Smith.
Fingers crossed for
Exactly
that
as we
one.
remember him.
I hope that pans out well. So the big question here is going to be how much of the de-aging we get in the movie, because after the hot topic yesterday was those photos, then the trailer comes out, and I can't say I was all that surprised about this because I suspected the flashbacks might be such a
Right.
small part of the movie that maybe the trailer wouldn't be heavily focused on it. But really, the only like super young De Niro we got was this exact shot
Yeah.
right there. So, you know, we're talking about this nonstop, but do you think that the heavy use of the de-aging technology is going to be reduced to a very small part of the movie anyway?
I mean, my guess would be that anything that's the most intensive stuff will probably be the least. Because, like, during the trailer, the part that I actually liked, arguably the most, was that back and forth between him and Ray Romano.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he's got the darker hair. It does look like he's been de-aged, but not extremely. And that was a shot I thought actually looked pretty great. So I think, yeah, it'll probably be the most extreme for the furthest back flashbacks. And my hope is that, you know, I haven't read the book, but most of this movie is going to take place while these guys are all in their older years and, you know, the more mature years of their life. And I feel like there's a lot of wiggle room there, you know, because it looks like Robert De Niro at least we're going to see him at his current age, at like slightly younger than his current age, older than he is now, and he's got like the white hair and he's looking, you know, particularly grandfatherly. So I feel like most of the movie's going to hang there.
I
Personally.
can't imagine the World War II flashbacks are going to be a big part of the story, like you're saying. Like it's going to be, it was so limited in the trailer, I have to imagine it lends itself to what's going to be in the actual film. I'm just excited that Joe Pesci's back. I was so excited to see him in the trailer. It's
He's
like,
what I'm waiting
oh.
for.
Yeah.
He's the one I want like a scene for. It's like I'm excited for everybody, but I have the least sense for how his presence is going to be. And like he's out of retirement for this.
I'm curious to see how significant that role is going to be. I mean, you guys know how the Oscar prediction thing works. It's like
Everybody gets one.
Well, even though we haven't seen it, that's the kind of thing when you assemble like an Oscar package, automatically The Irishman is on just about everybody's list. And Joe Pesci and Al Pacino are both in there, I believe, for some supporting actor list. So I'm just curious to see between the two of them, you know, who winds up getting the bigger role, what happens, and who actually makes a big impression.
It almost feels like to me, and I could be totally wrong because none of us really know, that the Joe Pesci
I
role
know.
could be like a glorified cameo kind of thing, like not necessarily a major, like, is it really going to be a supporting? Is it going to be anywhere where Al Pacino's character or that is going to be?
I wonder if just so many people can qualify as supporting just because it's such a long runtime. Like there has to be
Right.
many more characters
Yeah.
and significant parts of the movie other than Robert De Niro.
This
Yeah,
is going to make
true.
us kind of, you know, there are already Oscar categories to fight over, but, you know, movies like this, you're going to start being like, well, should we get an ensemble category in there? Because.
Yes, we should.
We should.
Which
I
we
would
probably
believe
should.
you
Like,
that's the
honestly.
case.
and a cameo category
And
for
a
that
casting
matter.
director category.
Like
and a voice actor. I could go on and on
and
about
stunts
this.
and stunts
And stunts,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Yeah, we got a
Corridor
long list
crew.
of things that should be added to the Oscars ASAP. But so
Best
we don't go
de-aging.
down that rabbit hole right now.
de-aging.
Yeah, you wait for it. I mean, I guess it's kind of visual
And it's
effects,
coming.
and then my head spins out of control when I throw Lion King into the mix, and how that's
my
messing up
gosh.
that whole cover. I don't know.
And I think
can't right
Richard
now.
Linklater should present the award.
That's
because
my
he shoots in
favorite.
real time.
That's my favorite conundrum, though, is the Lion King, where it's like it's the complete opposite. It's like it's too real. Now I don't believe it. Everything looks real and the physics don't match. What gives?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to discuss all of that on FYC this season, so that's going to be a fun ride on that show. Right now, we got to move over to this Hulu story with Ghost Rider. So, as we explained earlier, Ghost Rider, the series, is not moving forward at Hulu anymore. I know poor Dorian is really bummed about this, but
Dorian.
it's not. We're sorry, Dorian. It's not happening, though. So, what I want to ask you guys first, because, you know, we get trade reports and comments like official terminology like creative impasse, which could mean just about anything. So you hear that. What do you think that means? What stopped this series dead in its tracks when, I don't know, I got the impression that it was a likely go at Hulu.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is Ghost Rider to me is always kind of an odd property, especially in the current landscape, and especially as I'm thinking about it at Hulu, just because their main tried and true Marvel series at the moment is Runaways, which is a young adult series. I have no idea ultimately what the creative differences were, but I do feel like you have there a lot of room to debate what the tone ought to be, how dark and hellish to get versus how comic book action oriented to get. And I know that they've expressed interest in keeping it a heavier, more adult property. And I don't really know how the Disney Hulu conversation factors into that either. When I just hear Ghost Rider Hulu, I kind of raise my eyebrow because that's not the first place I would think. So in terms of creative differences, I always feel like you're falling into a place where you're either at risk of becoming a B movie, like the movies, or you're at risk of becoming something that is a bit too dark and too niche for people. And I wonder if maybe that's where they got held up or something like that. Or if it was just like Jeff Loeb had one idea of where the plot's supposed to go and they really didn't like that, you know?
So you're putting more weight in the story, the creative story differences that might have come up, not necessarily, you know, the higher ups and how things are changing with the merger and all that fun stuff.
I think it all factors in, but I think I think you can certainly point to the qualities that the character and the property has in and of itself as being sort of. We're still learning Marvel as a place for horror fantasy. Like in the next phase of the MCU, we're about to get Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and then Blade is going to come after that. And I feel like everyone's kind of watching the MCU to be like, how are we going to define horror Marvel? Because again, as much as I would love to see Nicolas Cage in the MCU playing Ghost Rider, those are not well-liked movies. As the thing is, it could happen. If they brought him to the MCU, this is a short diatribe, but it actually could work.
Of course it could work. I mean, think about now. This could be his renaissance. Everybody else is having a renaissance. This could be his. And because they're so good with Thor Ragnarok and making things a little bit more humorous, if they took it in that direction as they're so good at, I mean, I would be an exciting property for me. I'd be thrilled to see it.
Everything is one self-aware quip away from fitting into the MCU. I will give them. But I guess for me, I almost feel like the best place for this would have been FX. There's that rumor floating around now that the Netflix shows are going to get saved by FX, and that sounds ideal to me. It's not confirmed, but there are whispers, and I haven't found that they're unconfirmed or debunked yet. But yeah, there are people saying that they want to revitalize Daredevil, they want to bring Heroes for Hire and stuff like that. And FX seems like a network that would allow you to take something like Daredevil, at least in my eyes, and not Daredevil, Ghost Rider, seriously enough to be dark, to be heavy, to be hellish, but to also embrace some of the more fun out there elements of having a dude who turns into a leather-clad skull man at night, you know?
Okay, so I would believe that. Let's entertain that idea for a little bit, because when I read this report, you know, this is just speculation here. This is all the information we got, and we're kind of just playing with it right now. I read this report, and I'm like, oh, they're keeping this character in their back pocket so they could use him for the MCU or something else, or Jeff Loeb's days might be numbered and Kevin Feige is going to take over this and the entire world for that matter.
The only creative producer I don't fear for in this life is Kevin Feige.
Right. He's the only person in Hollywood in general who we know is going to have a job in 5 years.
Considering those possible future occurrences, could the FX thing even be an option? Or are we in a position where, you know, Kevin Feige, the MCU, and what they're doing over at Disney Plus is essentially going to pull all of the Marvel characters back in?
I think when you hear creative differences without hearing anything else, that's of course what you think. I mean, creative differences, like what you said, I feel like the only thing it could be would be tone, because that is a really tricky character. It's a really tricky property, I think, to get right and have it not be cheesy, and you have to have a budget to make this CGI and the special effects look good. But yeah, I think my initial thought was exactly what you're saying, is of course that's what it is.
Well, I've become so distrusting of news of this variety because I feel like they're just inclined to lie to us half the time and be like, oh no, we just had a creative problem. Like this could be a Swamp Thing where they just swoop in and they're like, we're just going to kind of pull the plug on this. It's not going well. Or, I don't know, we don't like where it's going, something. But I see the thing that makes this interesting to me is I don't know what kind of machination that could be because there are so many things scattered around across multiple studios. And there there is the Midnight Suns. There is this sort of more dark team that Marvel has that involves Blade, that involves Morbius, that involves Hellstorm, who's also got a Hulu show that hasn't folded up yet. And so you have all these disparate elements at Sony, Marvel, Hulu, elsewhere that could all equal some iteration of the Midnight Suns, even Moon Knight on Disney Plus. Like, I don't know what you could speculate off of that because there are so many places it could land, you know? I mean, if Marvel has their control over it, my best bet would be like MCU maybe in phase 5 or 6 when we've had Blade, because you could easily introduce him perhaps through Blade, because this also just opens up another aspect of context, because now you have heaven and hell involved, and we've already got, okay, like Asgard is like a heavenly realm of sorts, but it's a sci-fi other world too, but there's like Valhalla that's like heaven. So now I'm also like, you have to define these aspects of your world too, and where does the devil and demons and Mephisto and where do all these people fit? So yeah, I don't know what this means for the MCU, and if it's MCU, I feel like it's gonna take a minute. If it's somewhere else on TV, it could be anytime.
All right, so if you had to place your bets right now, where is the next place we'll see the character Ghost Rider, whether, let's say, this iteration of the show moves over to FX, or, you know, years down the line, we get the character popping up in the MCU? Maybe as Nick Cage.
I wonder if, do they know? Do they even know? I mean, my guess would be either Disney Plus or it would be the MCU. I think it has to be like something big for this to happen.
I think I would bet on the answer being they don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I think
I think
they don't know, and they're going like this right now and trying to grab all of the characters that are out of their control or semi out of their control and rein them all back in.
Well, I feel like they're trying to unify, because I don't remember the exact detail I read, but they said that Kevin Feige is having even more influence over the arc of the various TV wings of Marvel, and the conflict that existed between Marvel TV and Marvel Studios during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been kind of alleviated. And so I kind of wonder if they're trying to also pull some of their loose ends together, because they are spread out across so many things, and now they do have their minds even more set on crossovers and team-ups. And we've already had this disaster with Sony and Spider-Man. And so, yeah, I almost feel like they're not entirely sure what the plan is, and I don't think Ghost Rider is priority number 1 for them.
Yeah, in terms of audience and that, but I feel bad for the actor. I just have to put that out there, because I mean, as an actor, you know, they work so hard. This is a character that was so popular on the show, and then, you know, kind of reinvigorated the show in a way, and, you know, to hear you're getting your own series and then it's a go, and then to have it pulled so abruptly, I feel terrible for him.
I really can't even imagine that feeling, but, you know, who knows? Hopefully this is my desperate attempt to look on the bright side. If he's not, you know, working on that and obligated to that, maybe it opens the doors to other things.
He's a great
given
actor.
The success he had on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So,
well, and
fingers crossed.
I'll never say never because of Constantine. Like, I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s going away, but you never know where Gabriel Luna might pop back up in that character.
All right, that's a fair point.
Fan love can do magic things.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, I like ending this conversation on that positive note. I'm going to remind you guys now that we are saving time at the end of the show for your live chat questions, so send them in right now. Ask us about these topics, ask us about bread, whatever you want. They have no clue what that means, but we're going to find out later on today's show. Also, before we move on to, yet another Kevin Feige story, another Marvel story / Star Wars / the entire world that he's taking over.
Captain Movie News.
Oh boy. We have to tell you guys about some more content coming to the Collider Video YouTube channel. Maybe a little something called Jedi Council. Check out this promo.
I'm Coy Jandro here at Golden Apple Comics in the heart of Hollywood with Kevin Smith himself.
Oh my God, that's striking. Look at what I could do with a camera. She's like, it's a movie. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. He's an angel. We can do anything we want.
Anyone that knows this man's work knows the best place to be with him is in a comic book store. I am so excited. We're about to do some sweet, sweet comic book shopping. You ready?
I'm ready to spend.
Well, hello there. I'm Ken Knapsack, one of the hosts of Collider Jedi Council, and I'd like to invite you to listen to our show, watch our show. It's on every Thursdays on the Collider video channel, and it's also available in podcast form if you'd like to listen to our sweet voices on Collider Jedi Council. Me, Christian Harloff, and a bevy of guests, I say, talk Star Wars. We celebrate Star Wars. We dig into the Star Wars news. We speculate everything about Star Wars, including your questions. So join us on Collider Jedi Council. You're going to have a great time.
So guess what? We're about to talk about the whole Kevin Feige Star Wars thing, but after our conversation, the conversation will continue today on Jedi Council, so tune in for that. You're not going to want to miss that show. Also, I got to remind you, this is a Heroes and Villains edition of Collider Movie Talk. Check out this t-shirt.
Hey.
These are great. I want one.
These shirts
Rebel
are very much,
scum.
Yeah, I feel like that's quite appropriate for
Hero,
me.
but through a villainy lens. It's good,
Yeah.
The rebel part, yes.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you ditching the word scum, but I still love this t-shirt and that other jacket that I've been wearing all week. So if you guys like this stuff, head on over to heroesvillains.com. Use TALK15 at checkout and get 15% off. They had so much cool stuff. Hats, bags, backpacks, you name it. And it's all just high quality things that represent the brands you love. So check it out. Now, are you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe when this story. So we were cooking up a whole extra segment today.
We were.
A little, a fun play on recommending some things on streaming, which hopefully we'll do in the future on Movie Talk. But then late at night, the big news dropped. I feel like it wasn't even all that surprising to me because I don't know, I just had a feeling Kevin Feige's role was going to expand in some sense, and not even necessarily as the head of all of the Marvel properties over at Disney. He is developing a Star Wars movie now. So you guys hear this big news last night. What is the first thing that crossed your mind?
Who's Kevin Feige?
Yeah, he's
Said no one ever.
What? I mean, yeah, this is a weird thing because I am both excited and completely unmoved almost. It's weird. It's like if you were to tell me David Leitch is going to direct the Face Off remake, I would be like, okay, I've seen him do stuff like that, so I know he can do it, and I have confidence he'll do it. And so, yeah, with Star Wars, I think, yeah, Kevin Feige's totally capable of this. He's totally proven himself. If I may quote my partner in crime, Greg Alba, if you're looking at somebody stepping into a leadership role, one thing you want to look at in a huge way is their track record.
Right.
And that's what gives me the biggest amount of hope for this because
Yeah.
Star Wars, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but what they've been doing with it lately has not made me the happiest moviegoer. I don't want Star Wars to become the MCU and have 3 movies a year, but I think Kevin Feige is a creative producer who has a really good knack for combining the passion for a property that informs your ability to keep the core of it intact, and then also adapting it to the new age and updating it in a way that's going to please and entice people rather than go too far too fast or whatever happened with The Last Jedi. It seemed to me like a lot of left turns in a very small amount of time, and I feel like he's got the finesse to maybe avoid that.
So because you bring up Kevin Feige's ability as a leader, let me just revisit specifically how THR worded it in their piece. They said that Feige is going to be developing a Star Wars movie as Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy makes new plans for a wave of projects set in the universe. So I read that, and to me that says he is developing one single story. He is focusing not necessarily on his leadership ability, but his creative producing ability and what he can do with a single movie. But as I was reading this story, so there were a couple sentences of this story, and this might just be because, we've casually discussed it in the past couple of months, if not longer than that at some point, Kevin Feige would step in and, Kathleen Kennedy might move aside or take on a different role, and he would have a leadership role in Star Wars. So even though this specific piece is saying developing one movie,
Right.
do you read it any differently than that?
I think he had an idea because they also talked about, it was hinted at that he already has reached out to a specific actor and told a specific actor that he has a role for him in mind. I think Kevin had as an idea. And I'm thinking about when I heard the news, I I thought about like the Hershel Ollie when Blade was announced, how he went to Kevin Feige and said, I want to play this role. And I'm wondering if that's what happened with Kevin Feige, if he sort of was the Hershel Ollie and said, I want to step in and I have this idea and I want to, like this. And then from there, I mean, I think it would be better to announce it that way and say he's going to do one film than announce that he's taking over the whole universe.
I think everything Star Wars is best delivered in a one step at a time fashion for now. Yeah. Like I feel like one big issue they've had up until now is getting way ahead of themselves with, we're going to do these spin-offs and we're going to keep the saga going and we're going to do episodes and we're going to have 3 movies a year. And yeah, I think that this is good news because, I feel like it could just be one movie, but I feel like even that one movie is kind of an audition tape because I don't think he's going to just jump off the MCU and go shepherd Star Wars, but I can definitely see his influence being under the Disney umbrella, having an effect on Star Wars. I'm sure they've already considered what Kevin Feige might do in various situations, and then having him directly involved just opens that door so wide that even if he didn't become the shepherd, he could certainly help, I think, the franchise into a more agreeable track, basically.
That's what I think they're kind of shaping up to do. I like your take on it, because I can picture that being the reality or the one film reality, but where I think this might lead us is, a structural path where it's like Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy operating in tandem. Because I also think as leaders, they have different skill sets and skill sets that could complement each other quite well. Also because Lucasfilm isn't just in the business of making Star Wars movies. They are trying so hard to get that indie movie off the ground. Is it ever going to happen? On top of that, they're pursuing other projects too that aren't Star Wars related. I forget what the book that they just picked up, but I know that's a top priority for them. So what if she works on developing other arms of Lucasfilm and he steps in? So I could just see a world where the two of them are the tops, and then maybe they start to, get a couple people under them who they could fully trust. Like maybe a Dave Filoni who could start pulling the strings in an even bigger capacity than he already is. So I just think as all of these franchises expand, I think they need more hands on deck, more trustworthy hands on deck, where if a film is left in someone's hands entirely, fans out there can go into it with confidence that they're going to do the brand justice.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a certain amount of this that we're all to a degree guilty of, where we put a lot on one person, and especially with Star Wars, we've put, or at least just the movie community has put a lot on Kathleen Kennedy. And I feel like some of that is unfair, and some of that I'm sure is merited on something. But I think collaboration is a great thing, especially for these giant ships, and especially for people who have multiple franchises to look after. And if you're figuring out the future of Star Wars, I do think it's also interesting for Kevin Feige, because this will be him coming into an already established thing that is already a franchise, already a universe that's already going. And, he's not going to have to jumpstart it. He's just going to have to make a good entry. And it's going to be interesting to me, at least, to see how... It's like I like that this is sort of starting as a one-film thing, because I'm like, okay, what's Kevin Feige like in this capacity?
And who's directing it?
And who's going to direct it?
That's the big question.
And what is that relationship going to look like? Because, I mean, him being the creative producer on a Star Wars movie also says something different because of some of the direct... It's like, I keep wanting to call them Friedberg and Seltzer, but that would be Lord and Miller got, yanked off of Solo. Rogue One got retooled by Tony Gilroy, right? So, it seems like there are some wavy decisions that could maybe be stronger under,
He's always had such harmony with the directors that he's worked with and given them the creative freedom, but still the pie is all together. The pie is all the same. Here's your slice, do your thing with it, but it still felt very cohesive. And I think, that's...
And even the creative differences have been relatively low key. Like, I'm sure he's learned things from the Edgar Wright Ant-Man situation, which of all of the creative differences in these big franchise movies seemed like a pretty mellow one in hindsight. They just kind of parted ways, and then the movie was fine.
So playing around with this film a little bit, because they did mention the actor. What did you say, Hershel Ollie?
No, I was just...
For Blade.
For Blade. It was just kind of how Hershel put it out there, like, I want to do this, rather than they approaching him.
Did you have other ideas for specific people that Kevin Feige is thinking about for the Star Wars movie?
Like when I think about it initially, I think like, are we thinking Chris Evans? Like, would it be like a Chris Evans kind of person? Of course, everybody's like Robert Downey Jr., but I'm like, Robert Downey Jr. Star Wars
I mean,
but how many people could it actually be?
Unexpected. I wouldn't want it to necessarily be an MCU actor.
But I feel like to hear that he's already reached out to an actor tells me that it's somebody he's worked with and is close with.
Oh, yeah.
I would believe that, but I also...
Or always wanted to.
I mean, he could reach out to anybody.
Well,
but
see, that's a possibility too. It's like, what if it is someone he's worked with in the MCU, but not to the extent that he's wanted to? Like, what if it's someone with a fairly small? It's like, I mean, how about Andy Serkis? Like, he did have a pretty big part in Black Panther, but that character didn't turn out to have as much screen time as I thought he was going to.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's one of the big impacts of that character. Even as the kind of way he exits, and he is a high. I mean, it's weird to single out Andy Serkis as a highlight of that movie. There are many highlights in that movie, but yeah, he's a guy who I would love to see collaborate in a similar environment, at least. And yeah, in the Star Wars world, like Andy Serkis would be amazing.
Anyone come to mind, Nikki? Or someone that maybe you want?
Well, like that's all going down the male route. What if it was a female? What if it was a Zoe Saldana? Because we don't know really what's happening with her. Grace
Jones. Let's just go wild. Let's go off the walls.
How about Elizabeth Debicki?
Oh.
She only got Guardians Volume 2, and I think any movie gets better if you add her to the cast. So
is she a big enough movie star? Or maybe she doesn't have to be.
She's on the cusp. I think she has name value, but she's not a household name now. And of course, Star Wars is a
I've
game
said this
changer
before.
when it comes to that.
I need it to be Jodie Comer. I just need it to be Jodie Comer. That would be so amazing if that was the person.
I would pretty much never, ever in a million years say no to that.
Yeah.
Character actress Margot Martindale. That's who I'm going with.
You know what? I would be totally fine with that as well.
The thing about Star Wars is that it's rife for character actors, and you can sell, like Star Wars is the star. So I feel like you don't have to have the most recognizable names, and in some ways that's more distracting. Because people knew John Boyega from Attack the Block, but like the main new people in The Force Awakens were all people we hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, which admittedly is why I was like, I don't know about Chris Evans, because he's such a familiar face, and it's not that he isn't a great actor and can lose himself in a role, but I don't know, for whatever reason, Star Wars of all franchises to me says, like I want someone who I don't know and I can direct. Like that also actually doesn't even feel fair, because it's like now I directly associate Daisy Ridley with Rey, but it's not to say that she hasn't done good work in other films. But I think I want a fresher
somebody
face.
known but not so.
Yeah.
And the allure of Star Wars 2 is that unknown. I feel like that's the irony of new Star Wars, is that the original was partly dazzling because of the story, but it's also these unknown worlds and this amazing design and this society that exists. And so within that, I feel like it's almost better to get more interesting with your casting and more out there with your characters, because the world completely lends itself to that, and we've just seen them vanquish space Nazis a few times.
Well, and he did that with Marvel. I mean, you think about all of the Avengers. I mean, and arguably very various levels of fame, and he took them to it. Now we assume that they were always famous, or we feel like they've always been famous, but they weren't. I mean, he's got a knack for choosing those people that, like you said, are on the cusp.
It's very true. So what?
Could
Give
be
us
anybody.
another one right now. I mean, I feel like I have Emmys on the brain, so right now I'm thinking, how about Jarell Jerome and Rachel Brosnahan?
Right.
Ooh.
Oh, Rachel Brosnahan.
Ooh, Rachel Brosnahan.
Jarell would be amazing too.
Yeah, I mean, two people who I think could do just about anything.
Let's get Sterling K. Brown in Star Wars universe.
I'm in.
I feel like he's the one of the new go-tos. That'll be the most emotional Star Wars movie. Because like he makes me cry in things that he's not even doing something dramatic. Watching episodes of Supernatural, I'm like, Sterling K. Brown.
I didn't even know he was on that.
I didn't too until we started watching the show. It's pretty great.
Did you just start watching the show? Not to derail this, but I've always thought about watching Supernatural, but because it's like 1,000 seasons, I'm like, I can't touch that.
Well, there's a loophole, because I guess they only originally intended to go 5, so some people stop after 5.
Oh, okay.
So, you can loophole yourself.
Sounds a little more manageable.
But it's delightful.
Before we go down that path any further, and before we go over to your live chat questions, I did want to add one quote here from Alan Horn, because there's a little bit in here that I want to get your take on. So Alan Horn had said, With the close of the Skywalker saga, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling, and knowing what a diehard fan Kevin is, it made sense for these two extraordinary producers to work on a Star Wars film together. So we've talked a little bit about Kevin Feige's passion for Star Wars, but the bit I want to know about here is pursuing a new era in Star Wars. And then also, even in that quote that we had read earlier, it says Kathleen Kennedy makes new plans for a wave of projects set in the universe.
Right.
Like, what is this new wave, and what is going to define it from what we've seen before in the Star Wars film franchise?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, did you have a thought?
No, go ahead.
All right, that's a fascinating question. I just don't want to jump on everybody. I'm always like paranoid about that. But a new phase in the Star Wars franchise and a new wave of things is a dubious statement to me, partly because I thought that was what they wanted to do already. And so the thing that makes me very optimistic about this is that I think Kathleen Kennedy has some good instincts. I feel like she gets a lot of unfair flack from Star Wars fans for betraying them. And I can see that, yeah, some of her choices don't demonstrate maybe the core of what people love about Star Wars necessarily. So I think the idea of being a Star Wars fan in and of itself doesn't really mean anything to me, because most filmmakers love Star Wars and would jump at the chance. But this combination, I think, Kathleen Kennedy's instincts for broadening Star Wars out and bringing more voices into it is good. And I think somebody like Kevin Feige can bring that love and also his, just prowess for producing and for pitching projects on the right scale and with the right creatives. I feel like this combination makes me more optimistic for Star Wars as a whole than I've been in a long time. And now I just want to see what their plan becomes. Because the thing that always makes me weary is when they start going, we've got a trilogy here, and we're giving this guy a trilogy, and we got spin-offs here. And
they don't have a plan.
Yeah, I think what we learned, or at least what I hope we're going to learn, is that, stuff like Solo that we don't really need isn't what people want out of Star Wars. And also, I think the interval is going to become very important, because that's one thing that has made this very problematic, is you only have the original Star Wars films that everybody can agree on as the sort of classic core of this. And then everything else is debatable. And so, I don't know. I feel like this could return it to form, and it's about the best circumstance I could imagine for it.
Well, it's just also those two statements are kind of contradictory, because one says one film and one says a new era. And it's like, is Kevin Feige really going to just go, here's your one film and just see ya after that? Like, there's just no way.
I gotta imagine some kind of creative consultant capacity at the
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Like,
at
I
the
can't
very
see
least.
him just jumping on Star Wars and handing Marvel to somebody else, but it just seems so sensible for them to involve him on the strategy side.
Yeah, I do have a feeling that if all goes well with this first film, he'll stick with it. But I do think that at least for a period of time, Kathleen Kennedy will be spearheading this new wave, or whatever we want to call it. And I'm just going to give a simple description of what I think that's going to be, and say that the new wave strictly means stories that aren't directly tied to the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
That's
maybe
it.
some genre splicing.
Yeah,
Maybe
I-
take that from the MCU. Yeah.
I would welcome that big time.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm going to remind you again that they are discussing this topic even more on Jedi Council today, so check that out and drop your comments on this story in the comments section below. Let's get some live chat questions in the mix. I got a big one for this first one here. MK Songbird wants to know, actor or actress who has had the best 2019?
Money-wise, this is Samuel L. Jackson.
He always does, though.
Accurate.
Didn't somebody surpass him, though, for the all-time? Wasn't there somebody? Because he was always like the all-time biggest money earner in his career, and then somebody else jumped ahead
Like
recently.
overall? or just in 2019? I don't know.
Would it be Nicolas Cage? Because he'll take everything. That's
when he does Ghost Rider.
I feel like it was someone affiliated with the MCU, though.
Yeah, I do too. It
Not
would have
Scarlett
to be.
Johansson, is it? I mean, she was
Was
going to be
it?
one of my answers for this between Endgame, Marriage Story, and Jojo Rabbit. She's having a pretty solid
she's
run.
having a good
She's having
year.
a good year,
Oh,
but she keeps having controversies.
Yeah.
She keeps.
I'm just strictly talking about the movies she's been in, and not the comments she's made about some of them.
Fair enough. I think Bill Hader's having an amazing year.
Yes.
Oh, I
because
love Bill
know,
Hader.
There's a lot to appreciate about It Chapter 2, but he's the only thing anyone's talking about. And there's also, I mean, Barry, he's
incredible.
both on the performance side, the writing side, the direction side. I mean, I don't have a great read on all the Emmy tallies, but I'm sure Barry won some stuff, right? Yeah,
I should probably revisit that list.
so much
I
going
think Barry season 2, episode 5, I believe. believe one of the ones he directed is one of my favorite
Ronnie
episodes.
Lily, the
little
Ronnie
girl.
Lily one.
It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite episodes of TV this year.
Yeah.
That's what everyone keeps telling me. I'm still in season 1, but yeah, Bill Hader I think is.
Can I throw out? Do you watch Succession? I'm totally digressing.
That's
Oh,
so
snap.
I'm almost
So
done with
good.
Euphoria, and that's next on my
Oh,
list.
it's so good. It's the most brilliant. If you like, because the writing of it, if you like Ronnie Lily and you like Barry, I think
Okay.
you will love Succession. Totally digressing. We're going back to the 2019 question. Who's having the best year?
I also
Oh my gosh,
will
that's so
throw in
hard.
someone that everybody out there knows that I'm a big fan of, Calvin Harrison Jr. I think between Loose and Waves, he should at least be on the cusp of an Academy Award nomination. I don't know if it's going to happen because I don't know how much noise those two movies are making at this point, but he is having a phenomenal year, and I think it's only a matter of time before he gets cast in, let's say, a Star Wars, Marvel, DC movie and blows up.
Adam Driver's having a good year.
Oh yeah.
He's
I mean, he
Adam
could
Driver's
be
having
heading
a-
towards double nominations.
Yeah.
Good decade.
yeah, that's true. He's
The
he's just
Report and
ramping
Marriage
up.
Story.
That's the thing. He's like 2019. You think this is good? Wait till you see what I got coming. He's
It's a bit of an odd pull, but I think Florence Pugh oddly has left
Oh
an
my
impression
God,
on
yeah.
me this year between like Fighting with My Family, Midsummer. She's in Little Women coming up and stuff like that. Like I think she's definitely at least on the rise.
Can I
for
go
sure.
super mainstream? Will Smith between Aladdin and now he has Gemini Man
Now
coming
he's
out.
facing off with himself,
he.
yeah.
Oh, what about Brad Pitt? He's having a renaissance too.
that's true.
He's having a good year. Although
And
Ad
he's-
Astra didn't do that well at the box office.
Yeah, but he doesn't
still.
care about that stuff.
No.
He said.
No, exactly.
It did okay. I think
Yeah.
for the type of movie it was, I think that had a pretty big price tag on it though. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe
It's
right
like
on that.
$80 million. Yeah.
All right, let's see if
Yeah,
we can
80
get
yeah.
another. All right, I already said the bread thing, so I'm going to make one bread question. You guys have no clue why we talk about bread on this show. You can blame Dorian, but I'm just going to throw this question at you.
I'm so
Jonathan
happy.
Morton is asking, what type of bread would you dress as for Halloween?
Oh man. Oh, what type
Oh
of bread
wow, I
for
love
Halloween?
how excited you are.
What kind of bread? Oh, I love bread. I'm a
There's
toast
so many
person,
breads.
so that actually excites
This
me a
is
lot.
always the thing to bring a movie talk panel together.
What's the spookiest bread?
Oh, I just want to be a New York
Halloween.
City bagel. I just want to be like big and
Oh yeah.
you know, like
great choice.
overstuffed
Plus,
and full
you-
of dough and good water. And
Plus, just go roll around in the dirt or something. You could be an everything bagel. You know, just get some like particles on yourself. You know,
this is the best question I've ever been
I like how
asked.
you have an approach to actually make that costume happen too.
I've been Halloweening all my life. All right, I got ideas going all over the place right now. I feel like if I was a bread for Halloween, to make it gory, I would probably be some kind of panini so that you could put like a toothpick through
Of course,
it. You know,
have
like
a gory
bloody
spin on it.
toothpick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably
I
where
feel
I
like
would
we need to
start.
come up with like a cutesy name for like an evil bread or something like that. It's like, you know how when kids used to dress up as like serial killers and they would wear
Yes!
boxes of cereal with knives on them.
Which, I mean, when are those going to become a line of highly successful geek T-shirts? Like, they've been relegated to stickers forever.
I feel like someone has done something like that. I feel like I've
must.
seen that recently. Or there's an artist out there that puts like a children's book spin on scary movies. Have you ever seen those? I got to find them on Instagram and I'll share it with you.
You have to share yours.
I've spoken about bread quite a bit in the past couple of weeks. I'm definitely an everything bagel kind of person, but I'm trying to think of like a good looking bread that you would want to dress
A
as.
pretzel, you know, those long
attractive bread.
pretzel, like it looks like a baguette, but it's a pretzel.
Well, I was thinking
They're
like a
so-
croissant because it's got some like nice
Ooh.
curves to it.
Yeah, and it's got like an actual design. You know, it's like there are tiers of the croissant. There's like the middle part that's fluffier, and then the edges. Yeah, it's nice.
You'd make a fabulous croissant.
Yeah, you would be. Yeah,
And to think I didn't have a Halloween costume idea 5
Now you
minutes
do.
ago.
I mean, if you want to go for a name pun, you could be Pumpernickel.
Wow.
Well, we need to talk about this later because I'm really stressing about
do.
not having my October Twitter name because I was already Paranormal Activity courtesy of Scott Mans and Perrywise the year that
Ooh.
it
Been
won.
Paranorman?
Ooh.
Paranormal.
Huh.
I mean, you know, it's not the
Okay.
best, but you know, it's
No,
it's
no.
a-
I'm feeling that one though. That's a good one.
a
Of
good
course,
one.
you came up with one right on the spot like that. All right.
I mean, you know, it's one of my favorite movies.
It is a great movie.
a great movie.
All right, let's make time for one more question. This one comes from Jonathan Peck, who wants to know, with Abominable coming out this week, what's your top? Oh, this is a big question. What's your top 5 DreamWorks animated films?
Ooh.
Hold on, let's come up with a
That's
list
a
here.
lot. Yeah, let's come up with a
DreamWorks
list
animated.
first.
All right, I'm gonna
I really liked
get
Abominable, by
it's
the way.
great.
It's great. It's really
Sounds
what I
great.
Can I
liked
just
about
do a quick like
yeah.
whoop? I love how no one out there gets it. We did it on Movie Talk for like 5 minutes yesterday. I love how you even did an Everest impression.
No, it was really good because it was teachy and not preachy, and a lot of animated movies are too preachy.
All right, just to throw out
that was for you.
That's a nuance.
throw out some titles for you guys right now. We have Ants, Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado, Chicken Run, the Shrek movie, Shark Tale, the Madagascar movies, Bee Movie, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, Peabody and Sherman, Turbo Crudes, Boss Baby. I'm gonna put Boss Baby on my list somewhere because
Oscar nominated.
Okay, and that was like a running joke when The Boss Baby was Oscar nominated. You should really watch that film if you were knocking it that year, because that movie, one, I think the story is really fun and also emotional, but also the use of different styles of animation in that movie I thought was very impressive. So really, open yourself up to Boss Baby.
Everything
You
he
heard
does
it
is
here,
good.
folks. Yeah.
He was the actor of not 2019, but Alec Baldwin's the actor of pretty much every other year.
Oh yeah, especially the year that Hunt for Red October came out. Sorry, that movie's been on TV a heck of a lot lately.
I'll throw a How to Train Your Dragon in there.
Weirdly,
Yeah.
I wouldn't put any one movie from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. I would just put the trilogy in, because that's a weird example of one where I don't particularly love any one movie, but I really appreciate them as a trio.
The entire
I'm
story.
totally with you
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
I think I'll also throw in. I think I would at this point probably throw in Abominable. I haven't revisited Kung Fu Panda in a really long time, but I do really remember loving that first one so much.
pretty
Oddly
great.
enough, I'm not a Shrek fan, but I never kind of got swept up in the Shrek craze.
I didn't either.
See,
I didn't
put-
either, yeah.
I put Shrek into my 5 more for the place it holds in my life. Because, it's like I remember when it came out,
Yeah.
it became a meme. I like Shrek, but yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I'm never like, Shrek. I got to revisit that,
Yeah, with Abominable, it's always hard when you've just seen something versus something that's been
fresh in
out
your
for like a Shrek
minds.
for so long. Yeah, how it's going to stand the test of time and over
Exactly.
repeat viewings.
But I
and-
did
yeah.
quite enjoy it. When you walk into a screening and you're just not in the best mood, and that movie completely changes your mood.
Yes.
You never forget that movie. So I can add Abominable to that list. And the same thing when I saw Zombieland for the first time. And Zombieland will always have a special
Yeah.
place in my heart for that reason.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Here's one. You named off a couple that I forgot were DreamWorks, because I would for 5 for me, the Train Your Dragon franchise, Kung Fu Panda 1 I think is great, and then Shrek, and then I would also add to that Prince of Egypt is pretty great,
Yes.
and Chicken Run. I love Chicken
my
Run.
I was
gosh.
trying to remember
Argument
when
is
I
so
said.
wonderful. Yeah,
So
good.
I have fond memories of Chicken Run when it came out, with how old I was at that time, but I haven't revisited it in
haven't
so
either.
long
Chicken
that
Run's
I
great.
didn't want to put it on
I
the
don't
list.
even remember it now.
And I will go out on a limb and say that Flushed Away is pretty charming too. I mean, that's Aardman, but with DreamWorks Animation, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's their CG movie.
Now I want to ask you
quite
all
enjoy
your
it.
just general favorite animated movies. This is fascinating.
The Iron Giant.
Yeah. Probably Nightmare Before Christmas right now.
Oh.
Inside Out is now my favorite Pixar movie.
Inside Out?
Hey, that's depending on the day. That's my
I know.
favorite, too.
I was teetering back and forth between Inside Out and WALL-E for a very long time, and I think WALL-E has finally been officially bumped down to number 2, and Inside Out is top
I
the
weirdly
charts.
love Ratatouille.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look
I
at
just
that. You
love
didn't just
it.
get a list of DreamWorks movies. You got a bunch of other ones in there, too.
Top 5 Leica. Let's go.
Oh, we
All 5 of their films.
Well, but really, they would all warrant a spot on that list,
would.
even if there were many more of them.
Even
That
if
makes
Box
no
Trolls
sense.
is toward the bottom.
Oh, I have a soft spot
Which-
for Box Trolls.
Well, and in saying that, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not arguably the best.
We need to reunite this panel and do some sort of ranked animated movie
Yes.
segment, because it's very hard for me to say goodbye right now and end this show, but we kind of have to. We're out of time today. Nikki, John, come back to us.
Oh, anytime.
I know I've got this one on
was
the panel
fun.
fairly regularly. We have to do this again
You're
soon.
giving me some hair envy too. So
Y'all can borrow some. If you just want to trim some of these out, you can take some
Borrow
home.
them as hair
Oh,
extensions.
geez,
Make your own
much
extensions.
appreciated.
Whatever you like.
Thanks to Adam in the booth and Dorian in the live chat today, and Thad for all his hard work. Guys, thank you so much for watching this edition of Collider Movie Talk. Don't forget to tune in 10 a.m. for Collider Live. And also, I'm saying goodbye for a little because, hey, maybe I'm seeing a movie that we talked about on today's show soon. So keep an eye out for a review on that. John Roca will be hosting tomorrow. It'll be a blast. Tune in tomorrow, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific.